I think as Mark mentioned earlier, we're a Xerox subsidiary, Newfield IT. We were bought 6 or 7 years ago. We are essentially the assessment and analytics arm of the Xerox Corporation. So some of Andy's RD&E money is piped into our tool sets to help analyse processes and identify opportunities to save customers money. So this was a survey that was done by Xerox recently. Essentially means that most organisations are looking to take paper out of their business. We talk about paper volumes rising, but that's simply because the number of documents that we all deal with as users today is increasing exponentially. Every time you get an email, that's a document. And God help you if your process means that you print that email and put it in a filing cabinet, which is what we found inside our organisation recently. So our role is to try and get to where are the opportunities within your business to streamline processes, to digitize processes, to get information into systems earlier. But I just want to test a few commonly accepted facts. So who grew up knowing you could see the Great Wall of China from space? Yeah? So did I. It's not true. Yeah? We put people in a space station who then told us, actually, you can't see it. You can see it with a telescope, but you can't see it with the naked eye. So who knows that the Vikings all wore horned helmets? Not true. Wagner made it up to make one of his operas more impressive, got Brunhilde to wear some horns. Yeah? Who knows that Greenland is bigger than Africa? Not so many hands going up now. Yeah, it's an optical illusion on a globe. It's tiny in comparison. In fact, Africa, you can fit most of Europe and North America into Africa. Just the way we're used to seeing it on a map means that it's misleading. And finally, oh no, actually second to last, we all told our children carrots help you see in the dark. I think we all knew it wasn't true, but do you know why this came about? When the British invented radar, we wanted to explain away why we could see German bombers and ships at night. So we created this propaganda to try and buy ourselves some time without letting the Germans, who weren't our friends at the time, have that information. And the last one is, obviously, this is true, isn't it? This is what we tell our kids. This is absolutely true, this one. So, of course, the point I'm trying to get to is that without the facts, without the analytics in place, it's actually very difficult sometimes to get people to change their mind. A client told me recently that if he asked any area of his business, how are your processes? The answer would be, they are best in class and completely compliant, now go away. Because you have to establish the business case and you have to go with proof to certain business units that they do have an opportunity, not a problem, an opportunity to improve that process or save money. So how do we do that at Xerox? So we talk about the analytics continuum. This is based on our cloud application. We call it Complete View. It's got a number of different applications, and you will have seen some of our technology hopefully used within your own organizations through your relationship with Zenith. So we talk about device analytics. Typically this is about us understanding where your devices are, what are they doing, what are they costing, what are their environmental impact, and how could we then redesign that environment or replace your devices to reduce the TCO or reduce the environmental impact. But the two areas that I'm going to focus on for the next 10 minutes are user analytics. Our industry has for a very long time been focused on the device because that's the bit we think we can control. I want something that's more cost effective, I want something that duplexes, I want something that can support swipe printing, but actually the root cause of documents are users. We produce the documents and then choose whether to print them or not, or our process dictates whether we print them or not. So the starting point to analysing any process is, what are we doing? And that's user analytics in our world. The next step on is document analytics. So if you take what we know what users are printing, what departments are printing, we know what our devices are printing, we add in what filing we have in our organisation, we call that the quantitative data points, and add in why. I can see you're printing a lot. Why do you print a lot? what happens to that document. You pull all that together, we call that document analytics. And its objective is to identify which processes are the key processes we should be looking at in order that present the best cost-saving opportunity for us, or the best efficiency gains for us. Whilst we don't have the time this morning to go through these, the next step on is then process analytics. So that's then mapping the current state with some of our technology, mapping the future state and comparing the two. And I know that as part of the IDC presentations that Andy's team gave was a customer where we took their core process down from 800 minutes to 142. So an 80% reduction in the time it took to onboard a customer for a case study we call Valandry, isn't it, Andy? Yeah, very, very powerful stuff. So, and then the next step on is service analytics. So we're doing a lot of work on how do we make our service better, how do we make our partners' service better, and pulling some of the disparate data sources we have around MPS and MDS. So at that point, I'm going to go behind the lectern. Okay, so this is the user analytics platform. So whenever, as part of your MPS solution, a print management application is installed, a follow me print application is installed. Every time you produce a document, every time you print a document, the system records your name, your department, what time of the day you printed, how many pages you printed, whether they were colour, black and white, what application you printed from, and what device that went to. So that just sits in a database, and most organisations don't benefit from that information. There are reports that can be run, but flat reports, but to actually interrogate that data is very, very difficult. It also doesn't help with some of the other issues that we have around MPS, which in that kind of environment where how do I allocate or fairly allocate MPS costs to users based on the fact that I now share devices, everybody doesn't have my printer anymore. You know, those kind of issues. So we pull that out of your organisation. I would say first that we anonymise it as it comes out. So if you take, not so much in the UK, but you take markets like the French and the Germans do not like the Americans having their data for some reason. Yeah, the agreement between those our countries, it hasn't been treated fairly by the Americans. So we take out username, we anonymise it, and we take out document name. And in doing so, we remove all personal information. You know, I am a user who printed a document on a given day. It's not useful to anybody. But we then pull it into the analytics platform, and the reason this works very, very well on the cloud is the way that analytics platforms work is this information goes into memory. So you can imagine the server infrastructure required to provide this. If every time somebody printed a document in your organisation, that was going into a database. It can be huge, huge amounts of data. But once it's on the cloud, we can turn our firepower up very, very easy to support this. So what this is initially for is to identify what our quick wins could be. And I think, Mark, you might refer to an example later in the day. But where are the users that are reconnecting to the cloud, that are generating the most documents, generating the most volume, and who we should go and talk to immediately and find out what they're doing. So in an analytics platform, this is extremely easy to do. So all I have to do is simply say, okay, who are my biggest users? So let's go to usage. Okay, so here I have a scatter graph of this organisation. So the axis is the average. So of course, anybody in the top right-hand quartile is generating more mono, more colour. So this is a department. So I now have a look at this department. Say, okay, so which users would I want to go and talk to if I wanted to find out why they're doing so much volume? So it would be these guys here. So I now have user 21. Because this is an analytics platform, I can now go and see what this person has been doing. So I can now tell this person, as I approach them, I can see that you're printing a lot of PDF. I can see you're printing a lot of PowerPoint. I can see what time of the day you're printing these reports, what day of the month you're printing these reports. Why are you doing it? I can see that you've got a lot of very, very large documents that you're printing. What are they? So from a quick win point of view, should it be printed at all? Should it be printed in colour, which is a big one for most organisations, that documents get printed in colour when they don't need to. Emails as an example, internet pages. PowerPoint, why are you printing PowerPoint? Always very, very big on colour cost. But also the appropriateness of the size of the document. Should it be going to that local printer? Should it be going to the MFD? Or should it be going to my print room if I have one? Or an off-site service if I have one? So this enables us to start getting those kind of quick wins about appropriateness of print and where it should be going to. It's not designed, although it is being used by some clients for this, as a compliance tool. So if you work in investment banking and you resign, the first thing they look at is, what has this person been printing in the last month? Does it have client confidential information that's going to leave with this individual when they go to a competitor? That's still locked inside the firewall. What we're looking for is user habits. And from a service point of view, it actually gives us some very, very useful information. If I already know that your finance department have a heavy volume 2 days of the month, every month, because I can see that you've been doing it, I can predict you're going to do it again. So I'm going to go and make sure your devices are full of paper and they're full of toner, ready for that peak period. Some very, very useful information. So that's user analytics. It's used both as a one-off assessment and then on an ongoing basis to provide the management information dynamically rather than generating reports, which can be quite costly. But I mentioned that this was one of the data points for document analytics, and I talked about asking the question why. So from a document analytics project point of view, the stages are, we know what volume you're doing already as departments. We interview the head of the department. What are your key business processes? And then ask the users, normally by web survey, what percentage of your output volume is aligned to each of these processes? Why do you print the document and what happens to it? And we end up with this wave diagram. So I annotate or sign. I want to give it to somebody else, share it. I want to read it because we talk about the affordances of paper. It's the easiest thing to read. It's the easiest thing to write on. We can stuff it in a pocket, stuff it in our bags, and to file or share or store. So it's amazing how many projects we get involved in where we see, and I mentioned email earlier, lots of emails being printed because the process is I print it and put it in the customer file. It's always been my process. And nobody's thought about changing it. So this is what the results look like. So depending on what my driver is, do I want to reduce filing? Do I want to reduce waste and reduce my environmental impact by avoiding printed waste? Or do I want to avoid sharing in that format? Why can't I share it digitally? So again, because this is an analytics platform, if my issue is filing, I'm going to be then targeting the processes that are responsible for the most volume of filing. Now this is obviously just from a print avoidance point of view, but what also feeds into this is the number of people involved in the process. So you talk about number of touch points in a process will show how inefficient that process is. So the example I mentioned earlier about the 800 minutes to 142, many steps of rekeying information from a document, getting it into systems, copying from one point to another, those kind of things can really rack up. And what starts to get very interesting is the cost of a process from a printer point of view, from print point of view, in relation to people's time is tiny. We all look at the cost of producing the document, but the big win is people's time, making people more efficient. So if I go to the scorecard, what it will show me is what are the key processes in order. If I was going to walk in front of your board, I would be suggesting that we should be targeting first because these have the most volume attributed to them, the most waste, the biggest number of touch points, and so represent the biggest opportunity to make you more efficient. So I've got some quotes from some clients that we worked with. So a top 5 law firm told us if by doing this we could give them half an hour per week per fee earner back in efficiency, they could increase their revenues by $20 million without increasing headcount. This is some of the kind of numbers that you get into when you start looking at your processes. Now, at a lower level, I happen to know an organisation very close by prints some reports for their customers, and it costs them £7,000 a quarter to print those reports rather than to give them digitally. Isn't that true, Mark? Yeah. So at a lower level, it does mean real money. Thank you.
We're going to have a quick break for 20 minutes, just to have some coffee, catch up a little bit, give you some time to make some calls, etc. And then we'll be back in, and we're going to show you how taking this analytics into a couple of workflow demonstrations, how you can see that transition from what was a paper process into a digital one. And then the session after that is, once you have that, is how we can help you share that information around your organization by using private cloud. Thank you very much.